Starting to record. And go to our slide that looks at what we're going to look at our order of the service we have. First, it's going to have like a call to worship. I have a scripture. We're going to do a song one day at a time. Hope we can get everybody singing together. I know Loretta won't be able to see the words, but the rest of us, I'll have a page with the words on it. We're going to then go to the top. Yeah.
Look forward that way, because you're not.
I have to cut my thing off. Remember, I'm looking at I got a second computer, and that's where my PowerPoint is. But hold on, let me do something. One thing.
You should be able to see what you're displaying on the. Sorry, we messing up your video, your recording, but you should be able to see what you're displaying on your desktop and look at it from there, unless you got notes.
I just got it. Okay. Unfortunately, I still may have to look to the side because to change the PowerPoint in here, I have to do it from the other side, not this side.
Okay. Well, just think that when you're doing the recording, you might want to look into it. I
got you. So what was it? Say we're going to scripture. We're going to test doing a song together. We're going to go on that topic, which is about the kingdom mindset that relates to the thing, because to the Bible in many places telling us about not worrying. And most of those places, especially when Jesus talks about that, he talks about the fact that when you're seeking the kingdom of heaven, worrying actually takes you out of the spiritual mindset. That's what I'm calling the kingdom mindset. So in many places in Ecclesiastes, in Jesus' teaching, it often talks to you about not worrying and focusing on what you can accomplish for that day. That's why I kind of have the title of Sufficient for the Day. And for that, we're going to talk a little bit about what we talked about Sunday, which was that creation cycle. Looking at creation as a cycle, which means looking at it as a circular process rather than a linear process. We're going to talk about the bridge or the barge that you can take through your day, avoiding the mire, which means avoiding falling into that materialistic thinking. We're going to talk about meditation techniques you can do at night, where you're repairing your mental abilities at night, or your spiritual concepts at night, and then what tools you're going to be working with for the day. It's going to be the next topic. Then we're going to do some questions and comments. And then I have another song that we'll try to do. It's called This Is the Day. And then we'll do our dismissal and our thank you. So if there are no questions about the order of what we're doing, I'm going to get my thing to come up again. And we'll go to our call to worship. And remember, this is from the Spiritual Guidance Temple of Truth. We believe that God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And our mother always told us to unfold like a rose. And our major topic here is seeking ye first the kingdom of God. So we're going to give honor to God, our creator, our redeemer, and our provider. Love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength. And we love our neighbors as ourselves. And we give honor to our founder, Mildred Davis Miller, Master Malvin Davis, our Supreme Father Marshall Davis, our Supreme Mother, Aletha Rowena Drake Davis, our boards at large, and to this congregation, peace, abide, hotep, shalom. And y'all can say shalom back, you know.
Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you. Okay. Just know we're talking here. And now for our scripture. Let me remove this out way, because y'all gonna want me to be looking for it. 1 second. And our scripture is based on the 6th chapter of Matthew. A little bigger from here on this one. This is not on your screen. I'm doing it from the other screen, so I'm trying to make the screen a little bit bigger. Say, do not store for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth, vermin destroy, and where thieves come and steal. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart is also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. If not, life is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes. Look at the birds of the sky. They do not sow, nor reap, or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor can dress like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall I eat? What shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness, and all these things will be given unto you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. In fact, this is in the I've just read the fifth chapter, portion of the fifth chapter of Matthew, in the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Blessed Mother. And just as a point, that last line it says, each day has trouble enough of its own. In the King James Version, that would have been written as sufficient for the day. Each day has work. But I think you can see how it's talking so much about not worrying, and that how not worrying will keep you from having that kingdom of heaven concept. Now we have a song, One Day at a Time. Please sing along with me. I'm only human. I'm just a man. Help me believe in what I could be and all that I am. Oh, show me the stairway that I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. We'll go to our next one, and then we're going to talk about that kingdom mindset. And as it said in the scripture, about considering that flowers and plants are And this is saying because in the description it was talking about that is, remember the big topic is don't worry. And to me, the most important part of not worrying is that you want to keep your mind in a high concept, and that worrying is actually going to diminish your connection to the spiritual kingdom. So flowers, and as they're doing it, they're not worrying. They're just continuing to do what God has commanded them to do. I mean, it says that they're always looking up. They're always looking up to, I was saying, looking up to the sun and seeing the sun, seeing, but as a metaphor, not for just looking up to the sky, but looking up to that higher concept, looking up to that spiritual flow of energy that is coming down, will help you to stay in the type of mindset that you need to get the most spiritual benefits out of all of your activities. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And I think most people know that a lot of times when I do concepts, that I like to look at some of the ancient Egyptians' um, ways of looking at that. I know, and I should have explained to Mother Loretta that we were looking at a flower of single rose growing up in the picture before that, and now we're looking at a slide that has three of the divine principles in the ancient Egyptian cycle. All of these actually relate to one concept they call that is Ra, who is often talked about as the sun god. But with these things, we're actually talking about what are these divine principles and how do we mimic them. And with this, we're talking about creation as a cycle, not so much creation as a linear process. As an example, when we talk about the creation of the Bible, we talk about going back to a time a long, long time ago that event happened. And then things happen after that, things happen after that. And you just keep a process of it's linear, it's straight. In the Egyptian concept, Ra, who was creating things, they have these stories about Ra creating himself every day, or the sun creating himself every day. Now, we could assume that because the Egyptians were not very scientific, that they had this idea that the sun was actually being recreated every day, and at night it was going away and then coming back and recreating itself. But here we have a people who had mapped out the stars, who gave us all of the science, the basic of most of our scientific principles. But in this, we're trying to say, oh, they weren't scientific enough to understand the fact that the sun had just gone to the other side of the circle, and it would come, and while it's day on one side, it's night on the other side, and it keeps reversing back and forth. Because the other way of looking at it is that the ancient Egyptians was using this as a spiritual lesson, not as a scientific lesson. And that this Ra creating himself every day was talking about something that could happen in your life. That every day you are creating a new opportunity, you're creating a new source of energy, you're creating a new way to manifest that heavenly mindset we talked about. So looking at it as a cyclical process, a round process that goes around. Now, the three, what is often called the manifestations of Ra during the day, is that he was Kepra in the morning, he became Ra at noon, and he became one that they call Atum night, at evening. He was going through this process every day of, then at the night, what would happen to him, that he would go into these 12 hours where he was in a battle with a giant snake. I think the name of it is Apophis, was this snake that he would be in battle with all night. And we're going to talk about how that can be used as a spiritual process, even the night process. But right now, I'm talking about the day when we're thinking about these three manifestations of Ra. And these three manifestations of Ra goes all the way back to a document that's called the Pyramid Text. The Pyramid Text is considered to be one of the earliest writings ever discovered that has been interpreted. There are some earlier writing forms that have not been interpreted, but in the Egyptian concept, the Pyramid Text is the first time that they see the Egyptians writing. So it's carved in the side of a wall. I was fortunate that Teresa and I actually got to go and actually see this wall that's inside the shrine of Unis. But when it talks about this Kepra, Ra, Atum, or these three things, and Kepra is considered to be the divine manifester, the one that manifests things, brings things forth. Kepra actually is, and it usually looks like a beetle. Those who can see the picture, you can see this beetle with wings. That is Kepra, a Kepri. You'll see a sun above it. That's kind of saying that you're having Kepra and Ra put together when they're saying Kepri. And with this manifestation, it's saying that every day they would think that Ra was reconfiguring himself as a manifestation in the morning. Now, spiritually, what that kind of relates to is one of the things we used to talk about is that every morning there are what they call these vitality rays. Mother used to tell us to wake up early in the morning because early in the morning, some of the sun rays, these vitality rays, were gathering up and being a part, becoming a part of your day. And that if you can get up in the morning when it's calm and collected, that you could actually draw in more of these vitality rays that were starting off each day. And with these three concepts, so that actually relates to another metaphysical process of the three omnis. I call them the three omnis, and that's omnipresence, omnipotent, and omniscience. This one relates to omnipresence. God is everywhere. But so because Kepra was supposed to be the one that brought everything forward, so that means it's present in all things. Ra, which is that noontime, it says when the sun got there, then Ra would transform into this his form of a full disk sun, and that all these energies will be pouring down at this noontime. This noontime relates to that concept of omnipotence, all power. That's when the sun is at its most powerful during that time of day, which in what we saw in many countries, it is a siesta time. So it's again a time of drawing in a lot of that energy from the sun, not trying to compete against it by working at that time, but actually drawing in that energy. Now, the last one is Atum or Atum. As the name of him. And this was considered to be the old man. The atom actually means like the end or the finishing of something, but is related to the concept of being wise. So it's a time of gathering in the wisdom that you had from before. So atom is that last manifestation of the end. Now, on just to relate one thing about the thing that you're looking at on that, and I'm gonna draw some squiggly lines here to show you what I'm talking about. Down here at the bottom part, it's talking. I think you can see me. Well, those who can see, you see me circling these three time periods down here. Because what it's saying is that they feel at different times of Egyptian progress that they made these different divine principles the major principle of the time. So that's why I'm giving you that, showing you two of them in the pre-dynastic period, and then the last one is in what they call the dynastic period. You'll find when you look at the pyramid text, it talks about all three of them being that one part of Ra. And it also, when we talk about the riddle of the Sphinx, you see this same almost concept of coming up of in the riddle of the Sphinx, when they solve the riddle of the Sphinx, it says that what walks with four legs in the morning, two legs in the afternoon, and three legs in the evening. If you look at Kepra, it's actually an insect, but two of its legs it uses for grabbing things, and so it only is walking with four legs, and that is the morning concept. Ra, who is, as you see, as a falcon-headed man sitting on a stool in the picture, walks on two legs, and Atum was considered to be the old man, so he's walking with a cane. So you'll see that some of the knowledge was passed on, but kind of confused by the Greeks as they were bringing these processes on. How do I stop this? And so let's go on to the next slide. And with this pathway that Rob was taking in the pictures, and I did put a picture of this, is that he was traveling in a barge, or he was traveling in a boat. As after he became Kepler in the morning, he got in a boat and he would sail across this boat across the sky. What I want you to think about that sailing across the sky in the boat is, as far as a spiritual technique for us to learn, is really talking about how do you keep your mind at a high level throughout the whole day. If you get up in the morning and you made a prayer and you got yourself in a high level of consciousness, how do you keep yourself in that high level of consciousness throughout the day? And you can see that it's sort of like either being a barge, a boat that you're going to travel across, or you can see it as a bridge that you're going to travel across. And here in the picture, for those who have the video, you can see I have a picture of a rope bridge showing as a bridge that is going from one platform to the other platform. But think of it in your life that many times you've gotten your mind at a high level in that morning. And what you need to do as you're going through the day, you want to keep walking at that high level. If I can just draw a little more pictures again, what I want you to think of it is that, let's say the mountain denotes your level of consciousness, and you had like one mountain. One thing. And that's the arrow too. That's the draw too. Yes. Let's say you had a mountain here and a valley. The valley went on, and then you had a mountain on the other side that you want to reach. Now, if you look at back in the beginning, we had the symbol of the spiritual guidance temple, and you see it forms like these two mountains, and with a sun in between. And that's kind of showing the same thing. What you want to do is to be able to say, I want my conscious to stay at the top of the mountain throughout the whole day. I don't want to go into the valley of the material thinking that people are doing all the day. I wanted to stay up at the top of the mountain. To do that, you would need to have a boat or a bridge that went from here to here. So you went throughout the day, but you did it at this level of consciousness. You haven't dipped down into the valley, tried to struggle through the valley, then at night, you try to get it back up. To have the beautiful life, you want to say, once I get my consciousness up to the top of one mountain peak, I wanted to be able to get over to the other mountain peak. And that is kind of what the bridge represents. It represents going from one mountain peak to the other mountain peak as far as a spiritual process. Now, the picture we saw of the bridge, and this is looking at a thing about how do you build a bridge? And if you look at the two sides of the mountain, you'll see that both sides of the mountain has two pillars. And then these two pillars that are on either side, hopefully you can see my mouse. Those who can't see can see the mouse going back and forth. You can see the mouse? Can you see the pillars?
Yes.
Yeah, you see the pillar. There's two pillars on this side and two pillars on this side. And when they're building a bridge, they tell you that's a very important part of it, is building these two pillars that are on this that are solidly connected to both sides of the platforms on either side. And once you've secured these things, and this is a wooden bridge, so you actually make them in pillars, but you could actually have a bridge that are made where it has these two foundations that are made on either side. And then from those two foundations, you take something that goes across to connect the two foundations. And here, between these slats of rope that you see in the picture, there's actually a central rope going all the way through the center of each one of these plaques. But it could be done where you just put a plaque on this side and a plaque on this side, and then add the boards going across so you can walk on. And what that said is you need a firm foundation on both sides of the mountain, with one being the morning, one being the evening, and then saying that as I go through my day, I'm going to stay up on this bridge. I'm not going to go down. In this picture, it would be down in the grassy area. I'm not going to go down into the pity part of it. I'm going to stay on that bridge. And so that's kind of what one of the techniques we want to talk about is how do you stay on the bridge? How do you stay on the barge as you're going through the day with your meditation so that you don't get down in the dumps and you keep yourself up there as much as possible? Anybody have any questions so far?
No.
No questions or comments? Okay, so let's go over to the next slide if I can get it going. And so what it's saying, what we've been talking about is avoiding the mire, avoiding getting down in that valley, down in that valley part, getting down where you get stuck in life. And this, and on our video, on our plaque, we're showing another ancient Egyptian picture of Ra crossing in the barge. Remember, we were doing it as a bridge, but then he did it on a barge, and the barge is nothing but a type of a boat, where Ra is crossing between these two mountains on a barge. There's also a story about Osiris, who was the son of Ra, also doing something where he had to cross between those two mountain peaks on a barge by walking across. Now, down at the bottom, it says Apophis, this snake. In the picture, you'll see this little curled up snake going down here. And over here, you see the snake's head, and you see one of the helpers of Ra actually fighting that snake back down. And with this kind of, the interesting thing about this valley is it talks about sometime in Egyptian stories, is that there's this valley of these two peaks that you have to go across when you're, and let's talk about it in terms of death. They believe when you die, you go on this, you're on one side of this mountain. And then there's another mountain that's far off, so you can be able to get to a higher consciousness. But there's a valley in between. And in that valley, there is this evil snake that is going to try to get you as you cross to the valley. And the way that an initiate would learn how to avoid that is that they would give them a special song or a special prayer to do that would make that snake come up and form all of these coils with its body. And it would cause the water to raise up. And you would be able to get a boat and sail that boat across the valley. And so when you're praying, you're actually trying to do that. The snake is representing all of the emotions, all of the craziness, all of the pain that you see in life. And what you have to do is find a way to, through your prayers, to make all of this become like an orderly coils that you can then pass over the top of it and keep your consciousness on a higher level throughout the entire day. So again, that's what we're trying to do is how do you avoid the mire? In the Korean Gospel, what it talks about this mire as well, the Korean Gospel is the one that actually calls it a mire, and it says that what people do when they're going through the day is they're walking on with the, it's like they thought they were walking on the road, but the road is actually like a mire, and as they're walking through it, they're beginning to sink into this mire as they go through the day. Just like, you say a person get up in the morning, they pray themselves up, then they walk out the door and they just keep walking further and further into this mire, into this lake. And what the Korean gospel says would do it is that what the spiritual person would do is they would use what is called the leaven of truth. They will use the truth to actually change that mire into a solid road. And through that truth, they would be able to walk across that pathway without sinking down into the mire, as it talks about in the Korean gospel. If we're looking at the picture of the ancient Egyptian, you'll see it in a boat. A lot of times on a boat, the rudder in the back of the boat and the shape of that rudder in the back of the boat was a symbol that they used for the Ma'at. There's a person that they show for Ma'at, and there is a symbol that they show for Ma'at. And the back of the boats were always shaped like Ma'at. And so I'm gonna, for those, I just clicked the wrong thing. So let me go back to it. Make sure I got my pencil.
Tell them what Ma'at is, honey.
Huh?
Tell them what Ma'at is.
And we're gonna have Teresa to tell you what is Ma'at, Teresa.
Symbol of truth.
The symbol of truth. So when we're talking about the Korean gospel telling you how to use truth in it, what I want to show you from this ancient Egyptian barge, that the back of it was also Ma'at. So it's being guided by Ma'at across this. So it's saying that truth has a way of, throughout the troubles that you have in the day, that truth can make it so that they either it makes it so that you can either pass over them like you were in a boat going across water, or that you could make it where it became like solid land that you were walking across, or like what we're talking about now, that it could be a bridge for you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Remember, we can talk. I don't have to be the only one talking. And let me get rid of this circle now. So this is talking about night, repairing by night. So how can you use this process to repair by night? And this has a picture of some workers working on a bridge, repairing the bridge. Because that's what we're going to think about. At night, how can you repair the bridge that you walk through the day? But remember, one thing about in the spiritual way, when you're preparing the bridge, is you're actually preparing a bridge for the next day in the cycle. And you want to think of the cycle of every day I'm actually using a different bridge. So I'm not going to do what they have to do materially. They have to go and then repair the bridge. But what I can do by looking over the bridge that I used the day before is I can learn what things I could do to make my bridge for tomorrow stronger. How can I make it so that tonight I can look over the past? Because remember, even the concept of Sankofa means not going back in the past and trying to live in the past, but it means that you use the past to build or make a better future. So when you're looking back over your bridge from the day that you just walked through, one of the things you want to look to there is where was I slipping on this bridge? Where did I have problems on this bridge? Where on this bridge did I find myself getting out of my higher attitude or my better attitude? And what can I then use as a way of defeating that, so the next time I come up to a point like that, I will be able to use that knowledge that I've gained from the bridge that I was repairing from the day before as a way of making sure that I don't slip again. So anybody have any examples of sometimes when you look back on life for something that some things that you may have run into and it was like from the day before, and you need to prepare yourself that when you run into that again, that you don't handle it the same way you did the last time?
Yeah, sometimes in life you may say things or be abrupt in some things that you say when you should have. I found sometimes you should just lay low, probably meditate or concentrate on whatever it is that you have to go through, and then see how it's going to materialize from then. But sometimes things happen to you and you just blow off steam at that time. So you still got to deal with a situation. When you have to deal with it, it hasn't been resolved. So the next time that you have to deal with it, you've prayed about it, you've thought about it, you'll do things more calmly, and it'll give you a different answer and a way to even cope with it better. Yes. And sometimes we just have to go with certain experiences to help us grow, so that we'll know, what not to do and to do it better next time, because we learn from our experiences and the mistakes we make.
Yes. And that's exactly. Can someone else want to have an example also?
That was a good one.
That was a good one. Yeah, because I think all of us have kind of done that. We've done something or had something happen to us, and the worst thing to do for it is, when you see the picture, is to just cover it up. We need to face it. We need to actually look at ourselves and say, couldn't I have handled that better? Especially if you start saying, what divine principle could I have used at that moment that could have saved me from using a technique or saying words that did not help the situation? Because that's the biggest part about it, is we'll do or we're acting in a way that really didn't help the situation. So what we want to instill in my mind is a way of handling those things that actually does help the situation. Or thinking, and that's a lot of times when we're teaching you about colors, and we're teaching you about signs, we're teaching about things, and then telling you what's the opposite of them. Part of this meditation that I'm talking about comes from a book called Human Problems and How to Solve Them. And one good thing about that book of Human Problems, How to Solve Them, is it talked about a lot of different types of ailments that people have, spiritual ailments, physical ailments, and it compared them to both the type of mindset and attitude that caused them, and then gave you the opposite one that would heal them. So, and in that way, if you were having a certain problem, it would try to give you the mindset that was specifically designed to deal with that specific problem. And that's what we're saying a lot of times what your nighttime prayer should do. Not just try to gloss over your life, but actually look at some of the points of saying, where could I get more help? And looking at some of the good things, giving yourself praise too. She said, something, there was something that happened to me today, and I think I handled that very, very well. And I handled it with this particular attitude. I want to reinforce that attitude that I use. And so you're using tonight to repair and rebuild, because your body actually does it. Your body is repairing and rebuilding at night. And sometimes what we do with these things is we'll tell ourselves, it's over, it's done, I don't have to worry about that. And then it keeps you tossing and turning all night, because you're telling yourself it didn't matter or you can't change it, but your heart actually knows what?
Truth.
The truth. That's not the way you want it to handle. So, and I find a lot of times if you deal with yourself and give yourself the solution. You know you can't go back and use it for the time you did it, but you can set yourself up so that the next time you what? You don't use that same thing.
Don't just set up. Right. Mhm.
So you're actually dealing with yourself, and because all these things are again designed, how do you keep that kingdom of heaven mindset? How do you keep your mindset up high? Since it's in a test, I'm not going to go into too long, but for me, that's an important thing of how you can use that night prayer, the prayer you say at night, to actually help yourself to make tomorrow a better day. If I can get mine. Okay. Now this one is say tools for tomorrow. And I'm, y'all can see, might be laughing now. What do I have a picture up of what? What do you see in the picture? Those that can see the picture.
Superman and another Batman.
Batman, yes, this is a movie that's called Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman is what they see in the picture. Because they made a movie where Batman fought against Superman. And who can tell me who won?
I don't remember the movie. It was too long. I didn't.
You didn't see the movie? And Teresa probably
I saw it, but I didn't get to the end because it was way too long.
It was way too long. Okay. Teresa, you remember?
Duke said Batman won.
Batman won. Because most of us said, no, Superman is supposed to win. Because Superman, he got X-ray vision. He's invulnerable. You can't shoot him. Superman has all these powers. But when they did this thing, Batman actually beat Superman. Now, of course, yes, they made Superman a little weaker than he is, than he has been in some of our days. And of course, a part of what Batman used was something called kryptonite, which we all know is what? That's Superman's weakness, is kryptonite. But one of the reasons I put this up there is that during the day, you're going to need tools to battle with the things in the day. Because we're saying you're trying to stay in that higher consciousness, right? And in staying with that higher consciousness, many of us try to go through our day as if we were Superman. We go through our day like what? Sticks and stones might hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Is that really true? The words really don't hurt you. Do we have the super strength of Superman to just toss things out of our way? Or do we have to start thinking about we need tools like Batman? Batman, I like Superman. Batman and Superman were in the days when it was only DC Comics before they had Marvel with Spider-Man and all of them. Batman and Superman were my two favorites. But when you look at Batman, you're saying, here you had a person, Batman has no superpower whatsoever. None. He did train himself to be a good fighter. So part of his skill was he trained himself to be a fighter. He was rich and he would make all of these things. I used to be fascinated with Batman's utility belt. I used to love that utility belt until he made it on TV. And they made that Batman on TV. And he had this big utility belt with these big old sacks on it. And Batman had this little utility belt with these little capsule-like things in it. But he would always pull out these powerful things for it. Batman would have a batarang. He would have all these things. And when he would fight against a person, Batman would often make something that could, he would get into battle with a person. He couldn't beat him the first time. He'd go in that bat cave and he'd make some kind of tool or something that would make it possible for him to defeat whoever he was going up against. And sometimes in life, we have to look at ourselves as Batman, as a one that we need some tools to get through that day. And that's what I'm saying. That's what your day prayer should be like. You should start thinking about what tools am I going to need this day? Yes, I'm now in a high consciousness, but a lot of times in that one day, you know that there's some things you're going to face. So what are you putting in your utility belt to help you deal with the things that you're going to meet that day. Because that day, you may know you're going to go into a meeting with something that, or someone that you don't deal with very well. But what can you put in your utility belt when sometimes you know exactly what the person uses against you, right? And yet you go day after or time after time meeting that person and letting them pull you down with the same old trick. It'd be nice to put something in your utility belt that would say that when that comes up this time, I'm going to be like Batman. I'm going to go in my utility belt and I'm going to pull out the tool I need. But now we're not talking about machines. We're talking about what is the spiritual tool that you can use to be able to get you through the problem that you face. In the morning, through your prayer, you can have yourself where it helps you to even find, asking God to show me the tool, show me whether it's that feeling of peace, whether it's that feeling of wisdom. What's the tool I need to help to get me through this day? Even if it's just that you know you're going to be driving on the road and you know you have to be safe because people sometimes get very crazy on the road. You know you're going to have to be driving on the road. What can I use? Do I need to get to that 23rd Psalm and read that the Lord is my shepherd, and about that pathway that you're about to go on? What other tools are you going to take through that day? Man, not always going through just saying, oh, I'm going to be a Superman and everything going to bounce off of me. And I'm going to have that X-ray vision where I can be able to look and see deep into all things. More days than not in life, you're going to go there like Batman. There's a movie showed that when Batman took the right tools, when if the ones who can see the picture, Batman beefed up his suit. Batman put some type of kryptonite thing in it. In the picture, you can kind of see he got his eyes are green. I think another part of his body had some kryptonite type stuff in there because he knew he was going to be fighting up against Superman, but he took tools with him, or he prepared himself to be able to face those things. And we can do the same thing when we're doing that morning part of the bridge. And I've been going a long time. I had on there to 9 o'clock, but I didn't want to have to go all the way to 9 o'clock. And I went back to our Rose picture to say, to give us some, do you have any questions or comments? Or what's on your mind? And feel free to share what you think about the lesson, about the way we're presenting the lesson, about things that we can do better in the way we're presenting it in this video conferencing format, realizing that some got a person on the phone. What do you have to say?
Nope.
So did you enjoy the lesson at least?
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I always do, really, because I always learn something. Each time you teach something, I always try to get, even if it's one particular thing, I try to keep that in mind. I know I can't, keep everything in mind, and I write some things down, but it's like something that glues to me that I try to get, that sticks with me, that I try to remember. But I always get something from it.
Okay.
It's helpful. And usually when you get it like that, it's usually something that I'm going to have to help me for the next week or whatever. It always helped me out.
I like how you did the bridge. How you said going like over the top and not over the top and not going down into the mire.
Yeah. I like something I even like the things that come to me about that. But yeah, and like I said, and I probably need to put some things because in Aquarian Gospel it talks about that going through that mire, and that's what I'm saying. Even the Egyptian, when you're talking about, because see, a lot of times when we look at the Egyptian things, we think that they're just giving myths for no reason, but a lot of times those were spiritual lessons. those spiritual lessons of, and not about just a death lesson or about just coming up with an excuse on the sun going across the sky. When you actually start saying that, no, that's something I need to do in my life. I need to think about in the morning, I need to create this, I need to do this kepper. I need to manifest what I want to happen throughout that day. And as I'm going through the day, I want to draw in the power to be able to do that. And then at night, when I'm that atom or that old man, I want to see what wisdom that I have gained from my life. So you kind of see it as a process that you can use.
It's like reflection.
Yeah, it's a reflection on that, and even being able to have that reflection because once you get your mind in a mindset that I'm going to learn from that day before, I think it even helps your night to become better, because then your body can go in your sleep phase and in your dreams, instead of just sitting up there and worrying about the whole day, you can actually start to give you some answers in the things that you looked at over that day. Because it's just not you look at it and say, oh, I made a mistake here. Because you don't want to do it and say, I made a mistake here and I'm going to have to stay up all night to figure out how to do it. No. At some point, you turn it over to God. Say, I made a mistake here, and God, show me the way. But just like I said, when I talk about one day at a time, but a lot of times I talk about, show me the way to learn how to get out of this, so I don't have to keep falling into the mire. One part I was going to talk about even when you're on the bridge, and sometimes when you're in that high thing, you feel that you fall off. You also have to think about one of the ways that one form of ma'at has wings. There's the wing ma'at, or the wing truth. Truth can actually, even if you fall off the bridge, truth can be there to what? Catch you and bring you right back up. Those wings can take you right back up to the bridge. So even if you slip and fall off the bridge. Now, when we looked at the picture of the bridge, you see they had these handrails and all that is good, but sometimes you still might slip and fall off. But you still have to say, but I'm going to prepare myself that even when I know and slip and fall off, that I still want the truth to be with me. And the truth can take wings, it can catch me when I'm falling, and do what? Take me back on top of my bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Bring you right back up too.
Okay, and I want to close out with another song as our test. And so this time, since we learned from the last time that everybody can't have their mics on, I'm going to ask everybody else to click their mic off or to mute their mic. And I'm actually have the other song, I didn't have music for it. One thing I'm going to try is I have This Is the Day pulled up in a web browser that you don't see it, but I'm going to see it's going to play the music for it. And everybody still should be able to hear me, and I'll be or does somebody else want to lead the song?
How you cut your mic off?
Okay, you're going
My
to
mic off? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, for Teresa. Okay, Teresa, I'm about to turn your mic off, okay? I think Teresa, I don't think you can talk anymore. Right?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I must have turned it on. I'm gonna turn the camera, mute you. I'm gonna do it again. Teresa, okay, you should be muted now. Okay? And Zandra, I'm going to mute you also.
Mute.
Okay,
You unmuted me. I've been on mute.
Okay, you just.
Me too. I've been on mute.
Okay. I'm going to play this song. I hope you're going to hear it. I've never done this before, but I'm going to play it and I'm going to sing. This is the day. But you can sing along. But just know we shouldn't get any interruption this time. Okay. So this is the day that the Lord has made, We will rejoice. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Okay, now I'm unmuted.
That was good.
That was good.
Yeah.
You heard the music too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I heard everything too.
Okay. So we know how to do it. That we can either have people mute themselves or people not to say anything, and even get music coming from the computer. So see now we
I
heard.
could get music coming from the computer and we all sing it. I mean, you don't really have to have nobody leading it, but we all can sing it with our mics off at our house,
Yeah.
wherever we are.
Yeah. Well, somebody can sing along. Well, you can have it sometime when they don't sing along, but yeah, but having the music there and having the words, and because the people at video, you can actually see the words on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that worked well.
I have a, you got the whole song here, but you just did the chorus.
I just did one. The thing, Jose, I could have let it looped again.
Oh, no. I mean, no, it's all right.
Well, I was looking at it's. I have you over an hour. So I only did one verse because I have you on here for a long time, and thank you all for staying. Um, I was only trying to make. See, Teresa not getting on me about leaving soon, man. But I wanted to try to keep it on. So, and since I was kind of over, I decided not to do two verses of it.
Okay.
Go ahead and test out to see if y'all could hear the sound. And so for our closing, as I say, for those who can see it, is our as a closing. May the love of God illuminate your way. May the will of God direct you each day. May the truth of God all errors depart, and may the peace of God forever dwell in your heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think I'm going to stop the recording now.